Hello and thank you for joining us. You are watching Inside Out. I am Yvonne Mukondani. Now today on the program we look at Zimbabwe's heritage-based education model, which is a pioneering approach to learning that roots academic excellence in cultural identity as well as national pride. Now this innovative model weaves together Zimbabwe's rich tapestry in terms of its history, its culture, and every other thing that defines us as a people. Now, to help us unpack this heritage-based education model, I have two gentlemen in the studio, Mr. Taunga Nandoro from the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education, as well as Simbarashe Majoko from a community-based organization of Zimbabwe. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for welcoming
I'm sorry I had
us.
to introduce you. I'll ask you to just introduce yourselves again, maybe properly, starting with you, Mr. Ndoro.
Okay, thank you. My name is Taunga Nandoro, Director of Communications and Advocacy in the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education.
Okay. And
Simbarashe Majoko, Communication and Information Advocate with Our Zimbabwe. Yeah, it's a community-based organization that fights for, it's an advocacy for inclusivity, and we fight for generally Zimbabweans for inclusivity. It's a multiracial organization.
all right. So in other words, you sort of stand in the gap for the community, you're the voice for the community.
Of course, yes,
Interesting.
yes.
So what we're looking at today is the heritage-based education model, Mr. Ndoro. What we want to understand, what is it, the core values and principles that define it, and what necessitated its birth?
Okay, thank you. The heritage-based curriculum is a curriculum that focuses mainly on competencies and innovation as it looks to us as Zimbabweans and our heritage, including our patriotism, our ethos of UNU and Ubuntu, so that we are able to identify ourselves as Zimbabweans through the sort of curriculum that we provide to our pupils, that they will forever remember that they are Zimbabweans first before they are anything else, no matter how big they become in terms of engineering, medical field, architecture. They know they have to come back to Zimbabwe to build it brick by brick, stone upon stone, as the president has always said, His Excellency Comrade Idi Mnangagwa has said repeatedly. We are the children of Zimbabwe. Our children need to understand that this heritage-based curriculum is there for them to be able to build their own country.
Now, having heard that, Mr. Majoko, I understand as our Zimbabwe, at some point you were on the forefront of advocating against maCALA, Atanta Jaira Tichinzwa Nezhao. And now that we're here with the heritage-based education model, what does it mean for you, and why were you so much against what we had?
Well, we really do appreciate what the government has done so far in terms of, scrapping off the CALA thing, because it was so costly and it was so burdensome to our parents. On the 13th of April 2022, we managed to petition the government. We managed to petition the Ministry of Education through Parliament for them to at least suspend the CALA, because one, we realized that after all the consultations that we had with the stakeholders and with the parents, we took upon it ourselves that it was prematurely implemented. Take, for instance, we have schools in the rural areas. They do not have electricity. Some people do not have cell phones. Say the least, a mobile phone. How are they going to make those researches? But now, with the changes that the ministry has done so far, we really do appreciate. And for us, it's a win for the communities, for the parents, and everyone in the country. Because it was so burdensome, and the cost that we involved in, taking on board everything, it was so burdensome. But we really do appreciate what the government has done so far. They heard our cry as parents. They heard our cry as communities. Now that they've introduced the heritage-based curriculum, I think it's a win It's a win for us communities.
It's a win for the communities.
Yeah, it's a win for parents. It's a win for everyone. Yeah.
All right. Now, let's look at where we are as a people generally, as a globalized village. How far does this heritage-based curriculum go in as far as preparing students for this world that we're in?
Thank you very much. You will notice that the heritage-based curriculum is more focused and more tailor-made to making sure that we align our pupils to a career path that is very clear from an early age. This is why you would notice that at O level, we now have got 5 compulsory subjects.
Okay.
And
Which are?
Which are mathematics, English, combined science, and indigenous language. And we're talking of you can do the Venda, Tonga, Chichewa, Chichangan, Ndebele, Shona, but you have to do an indigenous language. It's compulsory as part of the curriculum. And then lastly, we've got the heritage studies.
Okay.
Heritage studies now will tell us about us as a people, as Zimbabweans. We need to celebrate who our heroes are. Our heroes, King Mzilikazi, King Lobengula, Mbuya Neanda, Chaminuka, you know, even our heroes of the second Chimrenga, and how they went through to make sure that we have got this land between Zambezi and Limpopo, which is called Zimbabwe, land of milk and honey, and why we need to preserve this land. This is where all these heritage studies then come into. So these are the 5 compulsory learning areas or subjects. Then you then choose 3 other subjects that you would like to elect. To say, I then want to do geography, history, and commerce. That's up to you, right? But we're capping those learning areas to 8.
Oh, really?
So that you do not progress beyond 8.
So now you're saying we no longer have those those students who are studying 10,
15
subjects.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We're not having students or pupils that are going to be writing more than 8. Those who write 15, 20, it's not necessary. You end up having a jack of all trades and a master of none.
Yeah.
So it's a problem. So what we needed to then align is when you elect, you've got these 5 compulsory. Then when you elect, obviously you're electing a combination or learning area or subjects that you probably take at A level, right? And then from A level, you are capped at 4 subjects maximum. You can't go beyond 4 subjects. We recommend 3, maximum is 4. And remember, when you go to university, they consider the first 3. Exactly. Right? And whether you do 10 A-level subjects, they'll just take the first 3 for whichever degree program you're supposed to progress. So this is going to help us bridge the transition between high school and tertiary.
Sometimes they even say at least 2 A-level subjects.
Yes, or even at least 2, yeah.
All right, so Mr. Machoko, I heard you agreeing with Mr. Ndoro here, and now I want to talk to you as someone who's representing the parents, because we've had for a long time students, vanoita subjects akawandisa, you know, at O level or even at A level. Where did you come in, or where do you come in as a community-based organization in as far as communicating with the parents, in as far as career guidance on the part of the parent? Kuti look, my subjects are say, or maybe as parents you were just like, okay, my child has the mental capacity, so just let him or she do whatever it is that she wants.
Yeah. If you look at it, doing more than 15, 20 subjects, it's not necessary, because there's a career path that you are supposed to be following. So by virtue of having just 2 or 4 at A level and just 8 at O level, that means that you have a career path that you are supposed to be following. It doesn't make sense that you are going for science and you're mixing with commercials.
But do parents understand that?
They do. Now they do. Right. Our parents, I know you just have to do all this. But now they understand, because now they are civilized and they are modern parents. They do understand kuti mwana arufara ngoita ma subjects akati arikuenderana ne career path yake now. So that is the communication that we do with parents now. No, this is the path that the parent or the child is supposed to be following. Now, can I follow this career path? Ngachitora ma subjects akati. Then ipapo ndo panomva batsirwa manje through the ministry, through the schools. This is the career path that you are supposed to be taking. And if you take a look at more developed countries like China, like the United States of America, they don't just do things just in passing, or just as a go by. One path, they have a path that they follow, and they want to identify the talent that the child has. Kubva pa achiri mwana mudiki paya achikura, then from there vochitanga muchuzira manje kuti now wakufamba wakadai, then from there anogona kudi. So with the vision that we have 2030, we are in support of it. Then tikutarisira kuti by the end of the day kana vana vakatora career path yavanenge vaita ne curriculum yatava nayo nyowani, tikutarisira kuti at the end of the day vanomira vachiita zvinhu zvavanofanira kuita, and we definitely are going to achieve what we are supposed to achieve, because if we are working with the communities and we are working with the parents, isusu tichizopushawo zvichienda kuministry zvichienda kune vese vanofanira kuwana zvavari kufanira kuwana. Saka patiri kushanda navo tikupuhwa ma-ideas tichipuhwa mfumo.
So you're basically working together and at the end of the day towards a common goal
Definitely.
and a common vision.
Definitely.
And I like that he brings a very important idea or a talking point to what we're already talking about, the issue of talent identification. We've heard many a times where there's sort of a comparison between children from our public schools and those from our private schools, where you find that maybe the notion is those who are in the private schools are pushed towards whatever it is their strength is at. So if you're good at rugby, we push you towards that. If you're good in tennis, we push you towards that. Whereas when it comes to public schools, it's just academic, verenga, upase. What are you doing as a ministry to ensure that, there is that talent identification, nurturing, and sort of nurturing a child towards what he's good at?
Thank you very much. I'm proud that the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education is way ahead of its time in that regard, because we now have a learner support services system that captures and profiles our learners from ECDA right up to Form 6.
Okay.
So it's computerized, and this data capturing is ongoing. So even if a child transfers from one school in one province to another province, the head can have access to the abilities of this child, that this was what was captured from ECDA up to about grade 4, that this child may perhaps be a scientist.
Okay.
And that information, the head in the other province may then be able to go on that system and identify that. So we need to continue to nurture this talent. Unlike in cases previously where a child would transfer from Manicaland to Midlands, and then in Manicaland there was rugby, to the school that they transferred to in Midlands, there is no rugby. And you are no longer developing that. Now we have a deliberate system where we're saying if the head has identified that, okay, this child was talented in the sport or extracurriculum or physical education, and it's not available at the school, within the cluster of the schools, there is somewhere where the child can benefit. So the child may then have access either to some academies at the other schools that provide instead of the school that they are at. This helps us track the abilities and the capabilities of a pupil from an early age, or to also identify the weaknesses that the child may have, something that we may need to work on. So if the child transfers from, let's say, Mashonaland Central to Matebeleland South, and the child has a history of bullying other children, right? That is a challenge. But the head in Matebeleland South should be able to pick it up in the system and say, okay, from where this child transferred, there are incidences of bullying, and it seems like perhaps the child comes from a dysfunctional home. We have to take it up from there. When they go to Mat South, they pick it up from there to try and provide learner support services, guidance and counseling, to try and remove the violent aspect within that child. So this system is already there. We are still factoring in the data. Remember, as we said earlier off air, that we're looking at about over 5 million pupils.
Yeah.
So you can imagine it's quite a lot, and we need to capture around about 30 pages per pupil. And we're talking of 5 million pupils. So it's work in progress, but it has already started.
It has already started. And let me take you back to something that you spoke on earlier, the issue of indigenous languages now actually being compulsory. And if I read the statement that you released earlier well, it says that from ECDA to grade 2, the medium of communication shall be the indigenous language in that particular area. So let's look at the deployment of teachers. Is it in tandem with what you are trying to do as a ministry? Because we've seen sometimes, maybe I'm a teacher, I'm teaching in Eskodini, but I come from probably a predominantly Shona speaking area, you know. So how am I to communicate with that child if I am not originally from that place? So the issue of teachers being sent wherever it is that you're working at, and now the issue of indigenous languages coming into play, how is that all coming up?
Thank you. You will notice as the government of Zimbabwe, we are very proud that we have got the devolution trust. And this devolution trust has also come to the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education through the Public Service Commission, where we have now deliberately devolved or decentralized recruitment of teachers. So when we want to recruit a teacher who was brought up in Mwenezi district, we say go to Mwenezi district and be recruited in Mwenezi district. So if you're going to teach in Mwenezi, you know the ethos and the culture of the people in Mwenezi.
Okay.
The same will be done for someone in Bulilima, right? The same will be done for someone in Lupane, in Wange, in Gwanda, in Mutoko. Just go to the district office, you've got your ID, you grew up in that area, you know the chief, you know the elders. So you're able to converse in the dialect or the language of that area. So our teachers are not having as many problems as you would say, because right now most of our teachers are being deployed in their home areas. And this is also assists us in terms of having most of our teachers not motivating for transfers. So you get to recruit a teacher in Urungwe, they're given an assumption of duty, they sign it, and with the left hand, then the right hand, they're saying, request for transfer, because I didn't grow up in Urungwe. I want to go to Chirezi.
Okay.
You see, so it is helping us in terms of having permanent teachers who will be there at a school for 30 years, 25 years, because it is within their home area.
It is within their home area. Now, still on the issue of language, we've found that, you know, maybe with the changing times for parents, it seems as if it's the it thing for your child to be speaking in English, you know, even for as young as the moment that a child starts talking, the first language has to be English. Now, how are you taking this, that now children have to be taught in their indigenous language? If it's Tonga, speak in your language. If it's in Shona or Isindebele, now you as parents, on the other hand, you're saying, no, my child should speak in English. How then are you sort of bridging that gap, or making sure that your child is identified for the person that he is from a young age?
Well, like we said before, we are working with the communities and we try to conscientize them on the importance of being patriotic and on the importance of being who you are as an African, as a Zimbabwean. Because if you look at the most developed countries like China and the United States, you'll never find, you want to go to university in China, the first year, you have to speak their language. Then you get into the class. So that is what we are trying to conscientize our parents, that speaking your indigenous language is not a sign of being dumb. It's a sign of being intelligent. Because most developed countries, they speak their local languages. So we are trying to conscientize our parents and telling them how they are supposed to be taking it on board, that their children, their students, they're supposed to be speaking in their own language and learning in their own language and doing all things in their local or native language. Because that is how you start to, once you start to appreciate who you are, your identity, your culture, and all that, that is when you start to develop. So we are trying to engage our parents in as much as we can to make sure that they capture the idea that speaking in your own language and learning in your own language is not a sign of being dumb. It's a sign that you are appreciating who you are, and that's the starting point of being developed.
And I'm sure our viewers are busy judging us for, busy. We here advocating for indigenous languages,
Yeah,
but
we
here
should.
we are speaking in English. But anyway, it's one of our official languages.
Yeah.
So I guess we're justified. Coming to you, Mr. Ndoro, a recent publication says, and I quote, all learners at secondary school will now be placed in a two-route pathway of their choice to be determined on whether they want academic pursuit or they want to acquire vocational skills as the government begins to implement the heritage-based curriculum framework 2024 to 2030 that was recently adopted by cabinet. Now, does this mean that learners will choose between academic and skills subject? And if so, at what point will they do that?
Yes. It really means when they enter secondary education, right? That's when they will choose that path, route 1 or 2. There's route 1. This is the academics who that this child is going to go to A level, going to write O level, go to A level, then proceed to university, right? That's route number 1, clear cut.
Okay.
Then there are those who are talented in other areas, not the academic areas, right? We've got learning areas and technical high schools throughout the country. There's metal technology and design, wood technology and design, building technology and design, textile technology and design. All these are what we call tech-voc learning areas. And as the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education, we're working together with the Ministry of Higher Education to ensure that these children at O level, they are able to write the HEX score examination.
Okay.
And they get a national certificate, which can then help them straight from Form 4 to get into the polytechnics. And then they pursue their diploma and then their degree. But in that line of trade. If it's metalwork, metal technology and design, because remember we moved away from saying metalwork. Metalwork is just for what the white people used to make us do, just this is what you're supposed to do, you join this, that, and that. But when we're saying technology and design, they will tell you that this type of metal cannot be used for this type of architecture because they know the technology and they know the design. This type of design cannot be sustainable for the next 5 years. Now they're not just regurgitating, they're actually innovating and thinking outside the box. This is why we're using technology and design for all those learning areas. And it's going to help all our pupils that are not that they're not dull because they're talented in their own area. The others are talented in the academic area. So you shouldn't look down on one or the other. The one path will go and become a doctor, a lawyer. The other path will become one who is an engineer who builds Zimbabwe, fixes your cars, services your cars, does all your carpentry and cupboards and kitchenware, home design and technology and everything, because that is their talent, which we would have identified throughout the course of primary education, and as they get into secondary education, we then say, this is the path that you should then take.
And I like that you say that, and it's also very important for parents to hear this and understand it, because for a long time we've had where someone finishes O level and you want to proceed to A level and you want to go to university. It's as if there was this notion that no, polytechnics are for the less intelligent, or I cannot go to a vocational training school. But now that we're here, it's important that, especially we're talking of education model 5.0, we want to come up with innovators, people who create employment. It is actually important for people to have skills that are worked on, that are nurtured on, and not everyone is bound to be a doctor or a lawyer. Takato Siana like that. Now I want to talk to you as an organization which advocated maCALA. Let's look at policy and consistency. Are you not worried about it, as a people, as parents? Good enough, we've got this, tomorrow we've got that. Heritage based, what does it mean for the education sector and for you as parents?
Yeah, as you know, change is difficult, and change is difficult to accept. But what we're trying to do now is we're trying to engage our parents in as much as we can to make sure that once this heritage-based curriculum is on board and is working, starting next year, right?
actually starting this term.
This
Oh,
term?
this term.
This term, next week on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh,
Next
starting-
week on,
We're going
next
full
week on
on.
Tuesday, we are
fully
throttle.
fledged. Oh,
Yeah.
right. It's good. I think it's just a matter of engaging and making sure that our parents do understand what we would really want to do and what we're trying to achieve. Because if they are not educated and if they are not well informed about what we are trying to achieve at the end of the day, they will never understand these things. So that is where we come in as an organization. We go to parents, we inform them, we give them the education that they're supposed to get, and they come back to us, they give us the feedback. We go to the ministry, we tell them, then we will see how it goes. But we are not so much worried about it because we believe that development comes and it begins in the communities. And once we have engaged our parents and we've engaged all the schools, once they understand what we are trying to achieve, I think we are not supposed to be having any problems whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now that this heritage-based begins when schools open, what does it mean for those who are doing the continuous assessment? Do they continue? If they continue, how recognizable are their results on the market? Like, how is it working?
Yes, for 2024 examination classes, that is grade 7, Form 4, and Form 6, those will continue with the competence-based curriculum. They will do their one remaining CALA, which is the one they're going to do in the second term. And they'll be assessed on that basis in the October-November examinations. And then we're done. The ones who are in grade 7 right now, when they get into Form 1 next year, they are full throttle in the heritage-based curriculum. The ones who are in Form 4 this year, when they go to Form 5 next year, they're in the full heritage-based curriculum. Then, well, the others who are upper 6th have already gone to university. But still, those who are non-examination classes, on the 7th of May, all our pupils are now going to go through the heritage-based curriculum. We're talking of ECDA up to grade 6, Form 1 up to 3, and all Form 5s.
All right.
Those will be doing the heritage.
Those will be doing the heritage-based. And there's something that we've not mentioned. Where do soft skills come in all of this, in the heritage-based?
Well, the soft skills are embedded in the heritage-based curriculum. As we have talked about Roots 1, Roots 2, the soft skills are always there because we do not want to create, like I was saying earlier on, that because of the learner support services that we have, we're able to identify the children or the child that needs those soft skills. Those whom you find that, okay, they are prone to have to be victims of drug and substance abuse, they are prone to bullying, you then have certain learning areas for them. We've got guidance and counseling programs that we provide for them to ensure that they are able to become pupils that are acceptable in society. The heritage studies themselves teaches the ethos of Unu and Ubuntu. What did we, as our forefathers, when they lived, how did they live? How was their society structured? Then if you then understand that, you now don't have an identity crisis.
Yeah.
You now can proceed, and this then helps you, even if you follow Route 1 or Route 2, you're able to be someone who can, because no matter how good you are, as a carpenter, for instance, and I've got beautiful furniture, sofas, and so on and so forth, but you don't have the soft skills, you don't have the respect that clients would like, nobody will buy from you. Right?
No matter how good you are.
No matter how good you are. So those soft skills are embedded in the curriculum.
All right. So coming to you, Mr. Majoko, what kind of learners, as a community-based organization, as parents, what kind of learners are you hoping to see? What kind of learners are you hoping that this model will bring, and what kind of future do you think will be painted by the learners that we have now?
We are looking at the best of the best. This type of curriculum, this kind of curriculum, it gives competence, it gives the best that you can get. Look around the world. There are Zimbabweans everywhere. Why? Because they are so good in whatever they do. So with this curriculum coming on board, I believe, and I would want to believe, that once the heritage-based skills or heritage-based curriculum comes on board, we are going to have the best architectures, the best scientists, the best medicine practitioners, the best teachers that we were ever going to get since independence. Because this kind of curriculum, it gives you some identity, it gives you the kind of skills that you're supposed to get as an individual. So I would want to believe that at the end of the day, Zimbabwe is going to develop, and it's going to develop like ever before.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. To you, Mr. Ndoro, I'm sure there were sort of attempts in the past of introducing something more or less like this, the heritage-based model, and it was faced with resistance. What has changed now?
What has changed now is that we're in the Second Republic, and the Second Republic is a way of thinking that is progressive. It has got a way of thinking that has got a vision to become a prosperous and empowered middle-income economy by 2030. And here are the key words: prosperous and empowered. And it is through a heritage-based curriculum that we can become prosperous and empowered. This is why we are building our own country. Like I reiterated earlier, that his president, the president, His Excellency Comrade Idi Mnangagwa, has always been saying, Nika, we are the ones that are supposed to build this country. And it is through this curriculum.
It is through this curriculum. As you conclude, Mr. Majoko, do you think government is on the same wavelength as parents and as far as policy formulation is concerned?
Yeah. As far as we are concerned, the government has pronounced itself, and I believe that the parents are, appreciating what the government is doing right now, and as long as we work in the same wavelength, we are going to achieve what we are supposed to be achieving, because the government is doing all it can to make sure that the development that is supposed to come through is coming through, and the type of education that is supposed to be coming through is coming through. So I believe our parents and our government, it's not easy. It's not easy, but definitely brick by brick, stone by stone, we're going to achieve what we're supposed to be achieving.
And as the ministry, I know you work with parents on a day-to-day. Any maybe gray areas that you'd want to clarify for us before we conclude regarding this heritage-based model, in your last words?
Of course, last words would be, it's all hands on deck, and we would like all the feedback that we can get from all parents, because these are the initial modalities that we have published of the heritage-based curriculum. We're going to have the whole year to be fine-tuning it, such that by the time we get to January 2025, we know that it's not going to change for the next, up until 2030.
Okay.
So we have got time to be fine-tuning it. These are the initial modalities. They may come with other suggestions that maybe we need to improve on that. I think the Honorable Minister, Honorable Torere Moyo, the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Moses Mike, are open to those ideas, and then we can also try and see how we can implement them.
All right, the heritage-based model coming into full throttle on the 7th. As soon as classes open, it is the heritage-based model kicking in. But those who are doing what you know as maCALA for examination classes, they are continuing, right? So examination classes are continuing with maCALA, and every other grade from ECDA up to grade 6, it is the heritage-based model. And according to the gentleman in the studio, this is important for us as a people, because it will inculcate values that define us as Zimbabweans. Who know Ubuntu, who are we? Because we are not going to progress if we have a lack of self-identity. So we hope that this heritage-based model will work towards building this country, Vision 2030, that of becoming an upper middle income society by then. So yes, kudos to the ministry, and I hope that with all the relevant stakeholders putting hands on deck, we will surely achieve what it is that is meant to be achieved. Gentlemen, I must thank you for having joined us.
No, thank you very much.
And thank you for having joined us. Until we meet again, hopefully next week. Pleasant viewing.